Assalamu alaikum dear students. This is Department of English, Government Postgraduate College, Attak. I am Nasir Ali Shah, Assistant Professor of English. I welcome you to this online class of second year. Students, in yesterday's lecture, we started the second chapter of the textbook using the scientific method. We read the first paragraph so far, in which we are told that how and in which fields of our lives science has helped us. The writer has described just a few aspects of our lives, or just a few fields in which we have benefited greatly from the use of science or scientific methods. Those few fields of life are maintenance of health, production and preservation of food, construction of our homes, and improvement in communication and transportation. These are different fields which are described in this first paragraph roughly. Moreover, the writer says that living in today's modern age, which is called the age of science, we are more critical in our thinking than our forefathers or than our ancestors were. They used to be afraid of different things which they could not comprehend or which they could not understand. Some of those things or incidents or happenings around them were considered mysterious and strange. Due to lack of scientific knowledge, they could not comprehend the reasons or causes behind those happenings. But today, due to knowledge and more importantly due to scientific knowledge, we know the reasons or causes of those happenings. That is why we have become more critical and we are generally less fearful than our forefathers. Today we shall start the second paragraph of the textbook. The writer says, this lesson should help you understand how the use of scientific method has improved living conditions and changed people. Means if you fully comprehend and understand this lesson while reading the text, you can come to conclusion that how science has improved our living conditions, all the general conditions in which we are living our or leading our lives, and how science has changed people. People have themselves become mentally and psychologically changed as compared to the people who lived in the past. It should also help you understand how you can make better use of the scientific method in your everyday living. Moreover, the writer suggests that we can also make a more and better use of science or scientific method in our daily lives to improve our lives in a better way. And now here the writer describes different aspects of our lives in which science has brought a great change, or in other words we may say that science has brought a great improvement as compared to the past. So the first topic or first aspect of our life, which is described under the heading better control of disease. The heading of this paragraph itself shows that the writer wants to say that in the field of medicine or field of medical science, while dealing with the different diseases, the writer is going to compare the conditions that existed or that were prevalent or present in our society or in our world a few years back, before the advent of science or before the different inventions of science or discoveries of science in the field of medicine or in the field of controlling diseases. writer is comparing those conditions with the present condition. Writer says, if you had been born 200 years ago, this is conditional sentence. The writer wants us to think about that. If we had been born 200 years ago, means when science was not much improved, science was not much advanced, or there was not much scientific knowledge. The people did not have much scientific knowledge in the field of medical science or dealing with the diseases. So the writer suggests that just think about that. If you had been born 200 years ago, you would have had about 1 chance in 8 of living to be 1 year old. It means that if you had been born 200 years ago, or in other words, we may say that 200 years ago, life was so uncertain that all the babies born, out of every 8 babies, 7 babies died during their first year of life, or during their before reaching their first birthday, due to unavailability of medical facilities. In other words, in those days, about 7 out of 8 babies died before reaching their first birthday. This is the explanation of the first sentence. So the writer says that it also suggests that 200 years ago, death rate was more high, and out of every 8 newborn babies, 7 babies died during the first year of their lives. Suppose you had been an unusually strong little fellow and had lived through that first year. Suppose mean just assume, just imagine that if you had been a very strong little fellow mean baby or a child, strong mean very healthy. If you had been a very healthy and strong baby in your first year of life and had lived through that first year, means if you were lucky enough to survive or to live through that first year of your life and you were not among those who died, suppose, then what would have happened after 1 year? The writer says in the next sentence, very likely before you were 6 years old, you would have had smallpox, and by the time you reached the age of 12, you would undoubtedly have had measles, whooping cough, scarlet fever, and diphtheria. These are the different diseases which are described here and which were considered to be very dangerous and fatal or deadly diseases. In other words, we may say that 200 years ago, there was no way of treatment or no cure for these diseases, and these are the diseases which are considered to be very common or very little or almost unharmful diseases nowadays, and or we may say that the cure for these diseases is easily available. So the writer says that if you had been very strong or healthy child during the first year of your life and you had survived different diseases, it was very much likely mean possible, it was possible that before reaching the age of 6 years you would have had smallpox. Smallpox is also a name of a disease. It is a disease causing dots or spots on the skin. You would have had smallpox, and by the time you reach the age of 12, and moreover, when you reach the age of 12, or in other words, we may say that majority of the boys or the girls, or we may say majority of the children living 200 years ago must been having or suffering from these diseases which are described here. by the age of 12, you would undoubtedly means certainly, definitely, you would have had measles. Measles is also a name of a disease. Whooping cough, it is a very harsh and serious type of cough. Scarlet fever, scarlet means red color, and scarlet fever means red fever, generally it is called, and because it is a fever that causes scarlet or red colored marks on the skin. Scarlet fever. And diphtheria. Diphtheria is also a very serious disease of the throat. So the writer says that if you had survived or lived through the first year of your life, it was very much possible that before reaching the age of 6, you would had been attacked by smallpox, and if you had survived from this disease as well, by before reaching the age of 12, you would definitely have been attacked by many more diseases, which included measles, whooping cough, scarlet fever, and diphtheria. Even then, your battle for life was not over. Battle for life mean it seemed as if in those days the people who lived, or the children especially, as if they were fighting with the disease. Battle mean fight or war. They were at war with the disease. So if you had survived from all these diseases and you had reached the age of 12 or 13 or 15, you had become a teenager, young boy or girl, there were more diseases ready to attack you in your youth, and those included yellow fever, malaria, typhus, cholera, typhoid fever, and even influenza. Once started, spread through a community. So these were the diseases which were very common: yellow fever, cholera, and typhus, malaria, typhoid fever, and even influenza. These were very common in any community. Community mean an area where people live together, spread through a community. So these diseases, when started, whenever, they definitely spread and they attacked more and more people. Life was most uncertain. It means that in those days life was more uncertain. Uncertain mean unlikely or difficult to believe. So there were a hell of diseases. And why were these diseases more common? Because there was not much scientific knowledge. And here in this paragraph, the writer is discussing the field of medical science, or in other words, we may say that he is discussing about the control of disease. And next in this paragraph, definitely he is going to show us or tell us how science has controlled all these diseases. But before discussing the present facilities of medical science, the writer definitely wants to give us a clear picture of the past, and he has described the conditions which were prevalent 200 years ago. And from the childhood, from the very birth to the youth, the writer has described different diseases which attacked almost everyone at different stages of life, or during the different years of life. And because there were not more medicines discovered or invented, or much improved methods of cure were not discovered by the medical science, that is why the death rate was very high, and it seemed as if a person is at war with the diseases during his life. The students, this is enough for today's lecture. We shall continue reading the text in our